Hello everybody. Last time I showed off these destroyer droids that I've made with the P1s that I have just recently gotten. And I wanted to do a video showing the differences between my CR10 here, which is like my old workhorse that I used to do everything on, and the new P1s. I thought this would be a good direct way to show why you would want to pick a more modern printer like the P1s over the CR10, which would be now very cheap if you were to pick one up and you just cared about like large format and like large print area. So for this video, we're gonna go through the process of running off a print and showing the time that it takes to make said print. And we are going to show all of the like necessary steps that you make along the way in order to get from A to Z on a finished print. Then we're gonna also show some larger format prints that I have made on these printers and show the quality difference. So thank you everybody so much for tuning in. Let's get into it. First up is our 3D benchy test. We're going to be using a new slice. So I've taken the 3D benchy off of Thingiverse and I put it in Slicer for both. And I'm not using any presets that would help either printer print faster. Material selection, I've selected some silk green PLA that we'll be running off on the CR10. And I'm gonna use the green PLA basic that came with the printer for my P1s for that one. I think that the difference is negligible, and I think that the silk will really highlight the issues with the CR10 print. I need to clean the build plate. I'll have to take it off in a second and get it with hot water just to get extra pieces of plastic and stuff off. And we're going to take our plate off. All right, so we got some hot water going. I'm just scrubbing it off with this microfiber brush thing I printed off. It's just like a nice microfiber cloth handle. And this little brush has its own like little drying tray. I'll put it in. Just make sure this is completely dry before we put it back on the printer. It's like a fucked up cooking show.
You can't be doing this. You can't be doing this.
Next, we're going to put the bed back on. Get all my fucking paper clip shits back on there. I want to make sure it's good and dry before you put it back on. Next, we flip her on. Now, I have a little tool, this right here. It's the E-leveler, something I got off Amazon. It helps out with leveling and makes it just a little bit faster. This moves the print head into the appropriate place. Then we just kind of, okay. So that's about right. This light comes on whenever it's in the right area. Okay. And then in a few seconds, it moves to the next point for it to check. Okay. Then we're looking for the light to come on. So that'll tell us if it's in the ballpark. Okay, that one's in the ballpark as well. Okay, and corner 4 in ballpark. So this makes the G code per bed size. So since this is a 300 by 300 bed, it just moves to the corners where the screws are on each side of the bed. I'm gonna hit preheat, and then we're going to double check the leveling job with just this piece of paper that came with my dryer box. Okay, auto homing. Then I'm gonna move Z. I'm gonna move Z up 10 millimeters. I'm gonna move Y to 30 millimeters. Then we're going to move X also to 30 millimeters. Slip this piece of paper under, move axis X or Z, and move it to 0. Then we can see it's just a little bit too tight. So we're gonna loosen this corner until it just barely scrapes. That is very tight. Move it down a lot. Sometimes it's very confusing doing this because the dials here are marked down and up, but it's talking down and up meaning the corner that you're adjusting, not down and up on the nozzle. Move axis X, move it to 30. And it's dragging across the surface a little bit. I can't get the paper under the nozzle. Okay. Okay, so the thing is that you're never gonna get all 4 corners to go correctly. Okay, and what I'm doing here is I'm just feeling for when it just barely drags on the top of the paper. It's very annoying. It took me a long time to figure this out. I've gotten none of the corners in a row yet. Oh man, I meant to record the time. I forgot to record the time, so what I'll do is I will take my cancel. I'm gonna start a stopwatch, and I will add it to the timeline length of the raw footage. This is not exactly a scientific test on my part, so hopefully this will at least help you gauge. Okay, so we got 1 corner, and that is a fail. Move this down a little bit. Now you may be thinking that the E-leveler hasn't helped much because I've been going around to all these corners, and that is actually where you're wrong. I've actually stood here for 3 straight hours before leveling this machine with paper. So having just that one pass with the E-leveler really helps me figure out what's going on. Okay, that is 3 corners in a row. It is ready. It is ready to load. So in order to do that, we come over here. We got our filament. I'm gonna move our Z axis. I'm just gonna crank it. It's going up. You can see here, whenever your filament is loaded, the extra from last print will start coming out. And if you really need it to be all the same filament, you can push out all of the old one, but the majority of prints have a purge line at the beginning, so it'll get cleared out either way. There's no need to waste extra. So in order to load a file on here and keep our timer going, we actually have to use an SD card. We'll pop this in, And we're gonna load our benchy. I've pre-made all of our settings so that the benchy in Bambu Slicer over here will be as same as it can be between the two. Oh, I forgot to turn off settings. Support. Print settings, support material. We do not need support material because this is a benchmark. Okay, so now that we've got this, we come back over to the printer. All right, now that we're over at the printer, we can slide this SD card in. We're gonna get some Elmer's glue. Glue stick helps the print actually come off the build plate whenever it's done. So I'm just gonna coat the center because it's all we're using right now. Now we wait for it to start. We're sitting at 10 minutes plus whatever the previous steps were. Now that the print is starting, if it doesn't fail, the slicer says it should take 2 hours and 3 minutes to make the benchy. All right, let's see if it starts without a hitch. Right now it is starting the purge line off to the side. It didn't lay it down. I think it's because the glue isn't over there. Okay. The foundation of the boat is starting. Here's a little closer angle. Oh, is it not laying stuff down correctly? I'm not sure. It looks like it's not laying shit down right. Okay, this is pretty common for this printer, so I'm just gonna hit stop print. Okay, prepare move axis. I'm gonna scoot the Z axis up. Got my scraper here. I'm just gonna make sure that, and we're gonna go ahead and glue a little bit more of the bed. This plastic scraper I made that I found is super helpful because like you can even like swap out printable blades whenever it's a little more beat up. Okay, just gonna use the snippers to get this wad of shit off the end. Okay, we're gonna see if that was enough. Quick time check, we are at 16 minutes. See, once we get past the first layer successfully, we will be able to move on to the next printer. It's just the first layer that is always the hardest because everything is built upon the first layer. So if the first layer doesn't work, it's just not gonna work. Okay, it's still not leaving that purge strip. Let's see if the center works though. Will it extrude? Okay, I'll check back in when we have a successful first layer. Okay, so first layer is not finished yet, but it looks good, and we have 35 minutes on the clock. So while the CR10 is running, we are going to prep and run the P1s. So this is a little different. It has a load and unload process that you go through. So first we hang our, since we've already hit the button, we're going to reset and start a timer for this. It is heating to load the filament on here. I felt it take it, so that's good. We're also gonna wash this bed. It doesn't really need it, but I'll do it just to be fair on time. All right, our plate is clean. This is a flexible steel sheet, so it makes it easier to remove the prints from the plate whenever it's done. Okay, I'm gonna hit it with some glue stick. I'll just cover it because it's pretty dependable. We probably won't need to clean this again for a while. Is that overboard? Maybe. Close it up. All right, so we're gonna come over to Bambu Studio. I have remote controls on this, so it's asking about the previous action. We're gonna hit the home button to home it, and we can actually look at a live view inside the printer. And while it does that, we can come over here and slice the plate. All right, so it's the same settings as the Prusa one, or as close as I could get it. PLA basic, okay, so now it's set to the right filament, so it has the settings load in. We're going to slice the plate. All right, and it says it will take 41 minutes. So we just go hit print, and it sends the print wirelessly to the printer. So now the heat bed is preheating, and it will do that for a second. And it will do auto leveling and some automatic calibration to make sure it can produce the highest quality at the highest speed. So now it gets really loud. That is the chamber fan. It will not stay that loud. Right now it is extruding a little knot to make sure that it doesn't have any extra filament from the previous print still in the nozzle. Right now it's doing its input shape, which means it is, let me close this to make it quieter. It is
I took forever to get the point across, so here's a voiceover with it. Input shaping is when the printer moves really fast to calculate how much the printer shakes while the printer is moving at high speeds. This allows it to create higher quality prints by accounting for the shaking that the high speed movements cause. Very fancy. Next up is automatic bed leveling. This creates a topographical map of the build plate so that it can digitally correct for any inconsistencies in the level of the bed. Hi, Nightshade.
all right, and it's printing. Look at the detail on that. It's so much better than what I was able to do with paper and screws, trying to get it level. And just like that, a perfect first layer. Now it's going crazy because it's hit points in the print where it can go much faster. And looking at the stopwatch, I got 14 minutes and 51 seconds on getting to a perfect first layer. So the improvement, even just to the first layer, very impressive. Literally cut half the time out of getting the printer ready. We're gonna check this here. We've got 15% of the print done, and looks not bad so far. But we will tune back in whenever both of them are done. One last thing before we go to results. Here we have the P1s. And since we have a view inside the printer, it is going to be able to show us a time lapse of this getting completed. That is an amazing plus for somebody like me who may be making something like the last video you saw from me, where you see time lapses of the actual parts coming together. Some people complain about it, I don't know why. It's honestly fine. Interesting tidbit, the CR10 is sitting at 19% complete right now, and the P1s just hit 29. So it's a whole 10% ahead already, and it hasn't been that long. Okay, I'd like to make a quick note about noise. The CR10 here is much louder than the P1s. So, I don't know if you can pick it up, but all the high-pitched whining is coming from the CR10. The CR10 has some stepper motors that are very loud. In my experience, I would compare using the P1s as a normal noise level for a 2D paper printer. All things considered, it's not that bad. And especially whenever I am sleeping through one wall, I can hear the bottom printer much less than I can the top. So that high-pitched whining just really cuts through drywall a lot easier.
In order to compare the quality difference between the two printers in large format prints, I have printed two helmets here. The Phase 2 Clone Trooper helmet was printed on my CR10 a while ago. And the Phase 1 I printed in 4 parts on the P1s. One reason that these two helmets look so different is because the Phase 2 helmet was printed in 0.2 layer height, and the Phase 1 was printed in a 0.16 layer height. Now that might not seem like too much of a difference, but you can really tell once you sit these helmets side by side. Comparing the speed of these two prints, the Phase 2 helmet was printed in 2 prints over the course of 4 days. The front face mask and the top of the dome were printed all at once, and it took 3 days to complete. And then the back door of the helmet took another day to complete. The Phase 1 helmet printed on the P1s is higher resolution, so it has better detail and will require less sanding, and it printed in 1 day and 12 hours. The differences between these two helmets is astonishing, especially when you consider the speed at which the much better print was produced.
All right, the P1s is done, and the CR10 is at what percent? 41% complete. So our comparison will have to wait another hour and 3 minutes.
So up first we have our P1s benchy. Overall, it looks pretty good. There's very minimal marks on it. This is probably the best benchy I've ever seen. It is so clean, it looks so good compared to every other one I've completed. And then we get to the CR10 print. This right here exemplifies why I got a new printer exactly. I put in twice as much work before I was able to get the first layer to even stick to the bed, and then the print failed halfway up the boat. These two benchies right here show what is the major issue between the CR10 that I spent so much time with and the P1s. The P1s gets the prints done reliably. I barely have to do anything to it. Most of the time, I can just clear the build plate and then send the next print wirelessly. The CR10 needs a good amount of babying. I have to make sure that the first layer goes down perfectly. I have to like check if the bed has gone out of level. But the issue is that you could never depend upon the printer acting reliably. And it would be fine if I took more enjoyment out of running the machine and working on the machine than I do getting completed parts and making projects and working with the completed parts. But I got into 3D printing because I wanted to start learning to paint props. I wanted to have a completely or mostly physical art form that is just for me and just for my projects. And something that I could be bad at and learn as I go. Alright, so what is the point I'm getting at here? You've listened to me yap for far too long at this point. The old school, low-tech style of 3D printer where it was just a hot glue gun that went around and did its thing, and then everything else was you putting it together and tuning it correctly, had its place. It got us to where we are today. These new 3D printers that come out turnkey, and you're able to just start making functional prints that complete, they're fast, they are high resolution. This is what I'm looking for out of an actual tool for me to create with. This right here represents an obligation, not something that helps me get to my goals easier. It doesn't assist me as much as this does. This takes care of itself for the most part. And that allows me to spend more time on making videos and more time on learning how to 3D model. I haven't designed much. I've been following some tutorials, and I made this Lego 2x4 brick. It actually fits with other Legos, which is insane. I didn't know that was possible. I kind of thought that a print this small would fail because I hadn't really gotten used to the P1s yet. So after all this, it makes me wonder, why am I keeping the CR10? If you liked the video, please leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. If you'd like to support the show and have something to show for it, I'm selling these 500% scale replicas of the 2002 Lego Destroyer Droid, or Droidica, on Etsy. I'd like to thank the 2 people who ordered after my last video already. That was amazing to see. I sent one to Texas and another to Austria. Thank you everybody so much for your support on this project. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching to the end. It means a lot to me. I love making this little show, and I'd love to make a lot more of it. So your support means a lot to me. Thank you all for watching, and I'm going to give this to my mom.